Hi everyone, I'm Anthony Lin, the Hybrid Cloud Specialist Solution Architect from Red Hat. I'm very happy to have Yap with me today on this session.
Hi everybody, welcome to this YouTube channel. My name is Yap Fu Hong. You can call me Yap. I am the Account Solution Architect from Red Hat. Today I am super excited because this is the first time I'm creating a YouTube video with Anthony. Even though we have known each other and have been working together for almost 4 years.
Yep, definitely very excited to have you with me, right? So as we know, Kubernetes adoption leads to multi-clusters, and hybrid multi-cluster management is really hard due to reasons such as having to manage clusters at scale, inconsistent security control across environments, etc. So in Red Hat, we address these challenges with the Red Hat Advanced Cluster Management Solution. ACM allows us to manage multiple clusters using a single pane of glass. And in this particular session, we will look at some of the basic features and functions of ACM.
Here is a typical Openshift container platform dashboard. First, we click on the operator hub. Normally, you will see the Advanced Cluster Management for Kubernetes operator appears at the beginning of the page. In this video, we have already pre-installed the ACM on Openshift. However, the installation of ACM operator is simple and straightforward. You just need to select the ACM operator and then install it. Once the ACM operator is installed, it will appear on installed operators page. And then you click on the multi-cluster hubs. By default, the multi-cluster hub is not created. You need to hit the create multi-cluster hub button, and then you will be redirected to this page. You can keep the default settings or make any changes to advanced configuration if needed. And then hit the create button. Next, we will go to the management interface of ACM. Once you log into ACM, navigate to the clusters screen. You will notice that the hub cluster, which is the local cluster, has already been installed as a managed cluster. We can import previously existing Openshift clusters or other supported Kubernetes clusters, for instance, AWS EKS, Azure AKS, or Google GKE. First, I will show how to import an existing Openshift cluster on AWS with ACM. To start with, click on the import cluster button. Here you can specify the cluster name. Please take note that the name you use for the cluster is not relevant, but it makes sense to use the actual cluster name in a production environment. Under labels, make sure you add the environment. In this case, we will use environment equals dev. Once finished, click Save, Import, and Generate Code. Once complete, select the copy command. From a terminal login to the target Kubernetes cluster you want to import, in this case is AWS, then paste and run the command you just copied. You will see this in your terminal window. Next, navigate back to ACM and wait for the cluster to become available. Normally, it will take no more than 5 to 10 minutes. For the time being, we can proceed to import another cluster from Azure. We will do the same thing again. First, we specify the cluster name, and then specify the labels for the environment. In this case, we will choose QA as the environment. And then we click on the Save, Import, and Generate Code. Once complete, we hit the copy command button. And we'll do the same thing on the Azure terminal. We will go back to the RHACM portal and wait for both clusters to become available. After a while, you can see both clusters are ready and available to use.
Right. So other than cluster import, we can also create cluster, for instance, by just clicking on the create cluster button, right? But before that, we want to make sure that the credentials that we are going to use for creating the clusters have been set up within RHACM. So if you click on credentials, you can see that we have already created a credential for AWS. What are the stuff that you need inside? You need to make sure that you have the DNS domain defined, right? Your access keys, secret keys, what SSH keys you are going to use to access the clusters, and of course the pool secrets that we will be using when we provision the Openshift cluster. So going back here, right, it's very straightforward. Just hit on the create cluster button, select the provider. You can see that as of this recording, right, we have the major cloud providers, VMware, for instance, OpenStack, bare metal, for instance, right? The central managed provider is in tech preview for now. So let's just select Amazon Web Services, and then we will select the AWS credentials that we have created earlier on, hit the next button, right? We give a cluster name. For instance, we call it the AWS OCP cluster 2, right? And the base DNS domain, what release image we want to use. In this case, we are going to use the 4.9.23 image. Any labels, right? So, we could say that the environment is prod, for instance, right? And we hit next. So you will decide where the node pool is going to be. It's up to us to select, right? So for instance, if I decided that I'm going to put it in AP Southeast 2, right? I could do something like this, right? And have the control plane pool. It's up to us to select whether or what zone you want it to be in, right? So I'm just going to leave it as default for now. Same thing for worker, right? So it's up to us to select how many worker nodes you want, right? So in this case, we start with a default of 3 nodes. So we will hit the next button, the networking, right? It's up to us to decide and configure as well, right? I am, again, going to go with the default. I am not using any proxy in this demo. I'm not using any Ansible automation template as well, right? We know that there is native integration that can be established with Ansible, right, if we want. So hit next. There is review, right? We just make sure that everything looks good, and then we hit the create button, right? So it will just start to run the cluster creation, as can be seen over here, right? You can see the logs as well if we want to look at it, right? So it just will start to run all the stuff that's needed to create a cluster. And what we can do over here is to just come back and wait. So one of those things that you will notice, right, is that you could actually upgrade the cluster easily from here as well. So you can actually just select the version that you want, right, to upgrade to. In this case, I have a 4.7 cluster, and right now the latest is 4.7.43. I can just hit upgrade button and it's going to upgrade. So what RHACM allows us to do is this single pane of glass that allows you to do upgrading of the different clusters across your environment from a single point, right? So if you hit upgrade, it will just start the whole upgrade process, right? So it's as easy as that, right? So it will take a while before the upgrade will be done. In the meantime, let's just go ahead and look at the other use cases. From the application side of the house, we can also use RHACM to deploy applications on the clusters that we are looking for, right? So for instance, we can hit create application, right? And what will happen over here is, I'm using the book import application. right? I'm using Git in this case, right? We will specify the link for the repo, right? In this case, we are using the book import Git, the branch, various branches. We're just using master no pre post. The path itself is going to be big book import. And then we can specify which cluster we want it to be in, right? So we know that we have a couple of them, for instance, dev, QA, prod, for instance, right? So I'm just going to put it on the QA cluster, right? And that's it, right? The very basic setup. You can always choose other advanced options as needed. And I'm just going to hit save. It is going to create the applications automatically for me. So you can see that it selected the Azure cluster because we label it as environment equals to dev earlier on. So from here, we can very easily see what are the stuff that has been created on this Azure cluster, right? Which, you know, you have a deployment, the service, the route, and all these informations can be seen from here, right? So it just brings us directly to the applications itself. If we were to look at the Azure cluster, right, which is over here, you will see that the book import namespace and project has been created, and these are all the workload that has been created, right? So from a pods perspective, right, you can see that these are the stuff that's running, and you know, routes, services, it corresponds exactly with what is inside the RHACM screen as we see here. So from here, it allows us to easily control where we want to place our applications in which cluster, right? So very easy way for us to manage applications deployment at scale. And we also have very good integration with Argo CD, right? For people who are using it, you can also kind of leverage on what you have already done. So the next thing that I wanted to show is on the governance piece, right? So governance, risk, compliance, those are very useful stuff that we want to ensure across different clusters. So we can do something like policy creation. And, you know, we just select a namespace in this case, for instance, the default namespace, and then we can specify different stuff, right? So for instance, we can do the certificate policy to look at whether there's any certificates that is going to be expired or has expired, right? And then we can just decide whether we want to just inform, which means reporting the violation, or that we want to enforce, which means that we will make sure that the violation gets enforced when we create these policies accordingly. So hit the create button. And then it's going to show what are the different clusters that have violations when it comes to this, right? So we have multiple clusters being created, and it will actually show what are the stuff that has issues. So pretty much this allows you to monitor, right, the required policies across the various clusters within the environment from, again, a single pane of glass. You can choose to enforce, or you can, of course, you know, just choose to inform and make the necessary arrangements after that. So finally, right, what do I want to show over here, right? If we want to go back to the overview, you will see that we have 3 clusters, the third one being the one that we just created, and obviously it's still being built. It's not ready at the moment. And then we have one that is running on Azure Cloud, right? So then from this overview page, you can see what are the clusters available, how many ports, you know, whether there are any issues with the clusters, and how the compliance looks like. So other than deploying the applications, enforcing, you know, policies across clusters, creating and managing the lifecycle of Openshift clusters, we can also make use of Grafana, for instance, right, to look at the statistics of the clusters that we are managing. And this gives us a single pane of glass to look at the statistics and matrices of all the different clusters that we are having within this environment. And from here, we have a very good overview of what we have within the management pane, right, itself. And we can use the default statistics and matrices, or that we can actually create our own custom matrix as needed on the Grafana dashboard. So this kind of concludes the very quick overview that we have. And definitely we will be exploring future opportunities to create a more complex demo, right? To show all the advanced features that we have that can be offered by the advanced cluster management for Kubernetes from Red Hat. Thank you for watching.
Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Do stay tuned for more in our next videos. Thank you very much.